Eek, eek. Good morning, everybody. It's time for Protecting the Nest. Good morning, Carol. Good morning, Amber.
Morning.
Morning, John. How's
So is it
everybody?
still raining up there in Portland?
Well, we had a really interesting, huge lightning storm last night, right at dawn, which is an odd time to have it. And it looked like there was no rain, and then it just poured for a really short period of time. But we had sheet lightning going off and thunder that was right at almost at the same time, and then quickly got longer and longer and longer. So it was a fast micro lightning storm. It was very interesting just this morning, but it was hot and dry. So I hope the rain put out anything that happened.
I'm hoping that it's a lot better than yesterday because I went to the Fulton County jail to watch the Trump arrest mugshot fiasco, and then it was so hot that I literally was just sweat. That's it. My whole body turned into one big drip, and everyone was walking around. But what was great, I don't live too far from there. So I had my husband bring over a chair, a big thing of ice, and a big thing of water. And I had already brought snacks. So I was sitting there like just chilling until it was time. And thank goodness the location was easy for me to do that. But yeah, it was hot and humid, and hopefully today's a little better.
Yeah, we got some of that hot and humid when we were working at the farm last week, or this week, actually. That was a lot of the sweat rolling everywhere. So, yeah, it's hot. But
Did you have a lot of help? Did you have a lot of help?
Well, there were quite a few people there, and we got some big things accomplished with a lot of hard work. And she has so many chickens, Amber, you wouldn't believe it, and turkeys. It was a lot of babies.
Nice.
We ate a lot of great omelets. And she has a lot of garden and electroculture going on. It's pretty exciting. The coolest thing was really her library is really interesting. She has a collection of wonderful books, and when we were sitting around, she just kept plopping these stacks of books all over the place, and we'd get 3 pages into one, and then more would come. So we didn't. It would have been fun to be able to really dig in, but we each took one home to do a book exchange, and she's got a lot of great information, historical stuff, new stuff, all kinds of things.
Yeah, we're getting 2 more chickens, so that's 4. So I'm sure she has many, many more than that.
Oh, she has, I don't know, maybe altogether about 50 chickens and turkeys together. I don't know. John was feeding them. How many do you think she has? You probably know.
I would say around 40 chickens, and then I don't know how many chicks, 60, 70.
So how many
eggs? So more like 100
How many eggs
altogether.
is she getting? How many eggs does she get a day?
Well,
7 per day.
Most of her chickens are babies. They're little, so they're not laying.
That was like we get 7. Oh, we get like 5 a day, and that's with 2. So as soon as they get older, woo!
Yeah,
we're gonna have chicken
There'll
city.
Be a lot of them. But there's some really wild ones, those really fluffy ones with naked necks and beautiful colors. It's really fun to look at them and just see the incredible variety and beautifulness that they have. It's you get to appreciate chickens in all their glory and their smell. we know about that, don't we, Amber?
Yeah. I mean, except for some reason, I'll tell you, waiting near the jail, there's like a walk path, and so many people walk their dogs that when it was that hot, you could just smell dog urine and dog poop. I think the chicken smell would be amazingly amazing because you get to smell the feed, you get to smell like the bedding, and it's less like, hey, this is just defecation. No, there's like much more to it. So I'm sure that smell would have been more pleasant than yesterday, where I had to move from that area to another area. Yeah. So, and when you've got a dog smell like that, you've got
Yeah.
biting flies and all this stuff. So, yeah, I think I'd prefer the chicken smell myself.
And you can use it for fertilizer in your soil. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, after it sits for a while.
But I was amazed at how well the animals protect their territory. I mean, really, the minute that a intruder comes around, especially the males, they really get active and they do protect their territory.
Well, if you've ever seen a herd of geese, they are formidable. They'll come after you. They are incredible watchdogs, and they're big and can be so aggressive when they come all together. So I saw that in Ireland. People used herds of geese as watchdogs. It's amazing.
I need to get my husband and I, we need to come to the farm so that he'll get jealous and then he'll start working on our land. And because we're about to get our tractor done, but that is like a whole huge thing because apparently he and his dad let the neighbor borrow it who didn't want to give it back.
Uh-oh.
Took like 3 years. It was just a nightmare. But now that we've got it back now, I'm sure the neighbor didn't do any upkeep, so that'll be amazing. And so we're starting from all kinds of pieces of things rather than something that was already put together and it just needs cleanup and stuff. So yeah, we have a huge ordeal.
Yeah, we had some tractor adventures.
What was that video?
For sure. And we had an Osprey who was an expert that was really wonderful. So
what was that video, John?
That was a woman getting attacked by a goose that I found a few weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There was a girl on TikTok the other day and she was freaking out and she said, it's taken me a while to post this. I don't know what to say, but is there anything bigger than like a hawk or an eagle that has longer wings and a really, really, really long beak like the size of my arm? Because if not, has anyone else seen a pterodactyl? There's something going on, but I've never seen this kind of bird. Have they done something where there's pterodactyls again? And she's freaking out. And I'm like,
pelicans.
I don't know. And I start looking at birds. I'm like, I got to go to sleep. I don't have time for this.
No, those are pelicans. We get pelicans at the beach, and they look just like pterodactyls. They have the big beak, and when they're flying,
I'll let her know that.
Down, yeah, and their wings are like that, and they fly real low on the water, but they migrate, so you don't always see them. And when you see them, it's like, whoa, pterodactyl.
Yeah, it went by her window, and she was like, oh my God. And then it flew kind of down and around, and she was freaking out. So she does this post. I'm like, I don't know, but now I can get the post again and then contact her and go, pelican.
And there's a lot of gray ones. You think of them as white, but most of the ones.
Yeah, she said it was gray.
So they're dark.
Yeah.
And yeah, they look like really big, weird bats kind of when they fly.
But there is a lot of fear porn. The establishment is putting out these videos saying that the usual suspects at Fort Detrick or at Chapel Hill have taken dinosaur DNA and they're now creating these dinosaurs, and all kinds of stories are coming out. Chimeras. You really got to be careful.
Well, they do look like pterodactyls, but find some pictures. You'll see when they're flying.
Yeah, I figured it wasn't a pterodactyl, but her look, and she was mortified. And I was like, oh God. And then I started looking, but it was late and I was tired. And I was like, I don't know a bird that I got to go to sleep. I can't do this anymore. So I just stopped looking.
Yep, there are tricks out there happening, and that's something I really wanted to talk about today. That masking the truth idea, and I'm seeing more masks. We're hearing those same scary things again right now. And I found something this morning that was just perfectly illustrated that idea that I'd like to read. It'll take a few minutes, but Meg Mundy found it, and it was just right. Thank you, Meg. She sends lots of great stuff. So this came from a book that I think is called Masking the Truth. But it really shows you the incrementalism. You accept one and then more and more and more. So here we go. It's just a mask. It's just 6 feet. It's just 2 weeks. It's just non-essential businesses. It's just for the useless eaters. It's just for the non-essential workers. It's just for going into bars. It's just for going into a restaurant. It's just to keep from overwhelming the hospitals. It's just to make the cases go down. It's just to flatten the curve. It's just a few inmates. It's just to keep others from getting scared. It's just for a few more weeks. It's just for a few more months. It's just for a few more years. It's just for going into church. It's just a small bracelet. It's just a phone app. It's just for tracing. It's just for tracking. It's just more dying people. It's just for the greater good. It's just to let others know you're safe to be around. It's just to let others know who you've been in contact with. It's just a few more deaths. It's just for large gatherings. It's just for a few violent protests. It's just a vaccine. It's just 2 vaccines. It's just 3 vaccines. It's just 4 vaccines. It's just a little microchip. It's just a blood test. It's just a scam. It's just for medical information. It's just for a vaccination certificate. It's just like credit cards. It's just a few places that don't take cash. It's just so you can travel. It's just so you can get your driver's license. It's just so you can vote. It's just 200,000 more cases. It's just another 400,000 doses. It's just more booster shots. It's another booster shot. It's more variants. It's just another scientific study. It's just another injection in your body. It's just more studies. It's just to not let people make their own decisions. It's just for people with underlying causes. It's just more lies from the CDC. It's just more lies from the FDA. It's just more vaccine mandates. It's just Fauci lying. It's just about to get the vaccination or lose your job. It's just the Omicron BA2 variant. It's just no scientific evidence to back this claim. It's just until it doesn't become a threat. It's just time to take out those tyrannical dictators. It's just the NWO is what it has there. But anyway, this is the idea of incrementalism. And
Yeah, it's just one more cookie. This sounds like having a conversation with my kids. Mom, it's just 5 more minutes watching this cartoon. It's just like 3 more minutes until I turn off my light for bed. Mom, can I just have one more cookie? It's just one more cookie. Mom, I don't want to eat just one more sweet pea or green bean. Mom. And so it's essentially pretending to be submissive by saying it in an incremental way of it's just. Because it makes you think, oh, well, it's a little bit more innocent. It's a little bit more lighthearted. Because as children, imagine, like, I remember whenever my parents would say, it's time to come in. I'd say 5 more minutes. Oh, no, it's time to come in. Just 5 more minutes, please. And, when you approach something with that childlike or that communication level of a child, it doesn't make people afraid. It makes them afraid, but it doesn't make them feel like they're being oppressed. So if you came at them more as like an authoritative adult, then they would buck the system much more. But it's kind of that thing in the back of our head that we use when we were talking to an adult. So we perceive it like they're talking to us, like they respect us, rather, or that they're looking for permission from us, rather than demanding it so. And so that makes the increment so much more dangerous.
Yeah. And we're starting to see the scare about masks is coming back now, and there's a new variant. And it's out there. And immediately the CHD, the Children's Health Defense, put out a letter that you can just poke a button in and you put in your name and it'll send it to your local legislatures. I put that link in there, but it's a good idea. And we now have a lot of information. If they're starting with masks, there's so much information that's out there, including like a German neurologist. There's a paper I just put in the link for you, John, the one that's just right on the page, and it's basically saying that oxygen deprivation due to face masks cause permanent neurological damage. This is the CHD. If you go up, there's the letter. I think you're at the bottom
It's
of it.
just damage, Carol. It's just damage.
Yeah,
Just neurological
just
damage.
a little neurological permanent damage, just a little. Right, but for kids, it's more. You know, it takes away the ability to learn language. It takes away expressions. It takes away, you know, there's what is it? The OSHA study said that the number of chronically absent students after what we just went through increased by 6.5 million after the COVID pandemic. So it's a lot more than just incremental. That first step, you know, we can do stuff locally. There's lots of information out there saying how dangerous this is to the kids, and we have to protect them when it starts happening so it can't happen again. What did they say in the Holocaust? Never again.
Right, never again.
Never again. And I think, I put something on here. There's a really amazing. Oh, yeah, this was Karl Marx. He said the first time is a tragedy and the second time is a farce. That's a great quote. So we have to realize that. But the hoaxes are deeper than just the masks, obviously. And they're moving us towards this surveillance society, which is, the way that tyranny has started over and over again. If you look through history, you know, that's the first way to get people to comply. So, and then there's other things, the EUA, the climate emergencies, you know, these all, we need to hoax bust them, become the hoax busters.
I love that. Hoax busters.
Yeah. The Anti-Terrorist Act of 2001, the Trusted News Initiative, lockstep that we saw all over the whole globe, you know, and the idea of public health being something that is improving people's health, that's become twisted upside down. All the evidence that just piles up and up and up. So yeah, let's become the hoax busters. I think if somebody says it's safe and effective, we can ask, who is it safe and effective for? You know, it's not our children. It's not our parents. Who are you talking about? It's safe and effective for some people, but not for most people. It's dangerous. So
it's getting harder and harder to find Operation Lockstep defined in a 2010 document online. It's and you know, Snopes comes up and Facebook fact checkers come up and say, well, that was just a hoax. Some nutcases put that out there, but Rockefeller didn't write it.
Well, I've got it on my hard drive, and it was all put out by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2010. That was the year that came out. So, well, that's another thing. You know, I think the Trusted News Initiative is another hoax we need to bust. It's a hoax that they have.
I would say the most dangerous, or not dangerous, but the thing that's been the most disconcerting is it's hard to get to the truth when, if you mention particular people, they're not just people. Now they're people associated with a race. But there are some people you can talk about because that person believes in a particular political development or something that the people using race don't. And so they won't say, oh, no, you can't say that. He's a white guy. Right. But they'll say, oh, you can't say that. This person is this race or this race or this race. If it meets their standard of what they want to push forward. And I think everyone should say, no, that person is not a race. That person is a specific person. Don't make one person into an absolute total race. And I think that's where it's damaging. And people who do that are like, that's when a red flag comes up. Because if you're a bad scientist, I don't really care what your race is. I care that you're a bad scientist. And I'm unhappy with that. You know, and I
Hmm.
think people have become, I think some people are just sensitive and like they do it because they think that it's hurting somebody, but I think a lot of people exploit it. I used to be one of those that was very sensitive, and I'm still sensitive when it comes to race and people who have not been treated well in history, but I'm not going to use that in order to push a political ideology or to hide guilt from a party or guilt from specific people, because then that's not intellectually honest. And that means I'm using that race. That doesn't mean I care about them. That means I'm actually using that to the benefit of my argument. And I think that's where people aren't, they don't have that critical thinking, and they're not really looking at how they can be played or be used. And so if it's someone who's already intelligent and they're doing it, I automatically say, okay, you're utilizing that because you're hoping that people have zero discernment. And they don't know that you're utilizing that to push your debate, like your side of the debate. And if this person is bad or they've done wrong, that's just period, exclamation point. And I think that's really difficult to watch, is that so many people have that meant to do bad have utilized people from particular races and made them the front people or the fall person, so that then they can claim in order to do that obfuscation. So let's say you hire someone who's a minority, and then all the crap goes down because you put out false tests, you didn't do your research well, you wanted to make the money, you get the bid, you get the contract, you throw it out there, but you have three people that are, you know, given titles and they feel like they're important people, but if everything goes wrong, they're the ones who get the blame. And then when they start to get blamed, you can call people racist, or you can call people particular names on purpose in order to stop them from digging to find out who's actually behind it. And that's what takes so long to get to the truth, is because people are utilized because they're a particular race and they're literally just the scapegoat or the front person that has their name on it. And then people get caught up on that, and then it takes forever because everyone has to go beat around the bush because they're being told that they're a bad person because this person belongs to a specific group, which is ridiculous.
But I think, a lot of those arguments you mentioned and the big list I read plays very carefully. The language plays on our natural empathy, that humans have. I think um, a lot of people who are really good people are falling for ridiculous arguments because of that um, really careful wording, framing, couching things to make you feel guilty or you're a bad person if you don't, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a trickiness that has,
Reckoning Truth calls it sneakiness. I
yeah,
love that term because it is sneaky the way what they're doing with the twisting of the language and changing terms that used to mean one thing into something completely opposite now.
yeah, we've been watching that happen since the beginning of this show. We've been talking about that turning
Yeah,
ideas
I keep having
in
like,
their
I,
head.
I think my biggest issue that I'm finding, and this is happening on both sides of the aisle, like if someone tells me they want the truth and I share the truth and I find it, and it's like literal documentation, there is nothing grosser than someone telling me that they're for the truth and they're trying to get to the big bad somebody. And yet, if it looks bad on the way they vote or the people that they align themselves with, they do everything in their power to try to make it not be what it is, or they'll just ignore it. And I think it's disingenuous and it's gross. And I find a lot of times that I'm like jumping around everywhere because most of the time everyone's just looking to get the other team. And I'm like, this is gross. If everyone's just going to be on teams, just say you're full of it. Just say you're a partisan hack, and just say you only want the truth that suits your argument, and get out of my way, and just don't talk to me. Like, stop sharing information with me when it's absolutely biased. And like, I find that on both sides of the aisle. And it's like, who knew people would marry their political party? Like, would literally be engaged to it and throw out truth, throw out integrity, throw out their character, all in order to push for people that don't give a damn about them except for their vote. It's just so disgusting and weird, and I just can't wrap my head around it. For me, I love both my kids, but if they're doing something wrong, I'm not going to look at them and go, they're my kids. Who cares? Like, they're my kids, are doing something wrong, they shouldn't be doing it. It doesn't matter. Like, and I love them more than any political party, so if I can get onto my children, why wouldn't I hold my political party or anybody else's accountable? Like, and it's just, people have lost their mind. Like, they're such partisan hacks, and it's just really infuriating at this point.
Well, I think that the bureaucracy, which isn't really political, has also been held hostage by coercion and bribery and threats. If you look at the hospital protocols, for example, they're not allowing the natural order of people making observations and making decisions for treatment based on those observations and their knowledge of history. That's just thrown out for this kind of AI protocol idea and the one solution for everybody. But in order for that to happen, in order for that transition to happen, it wasn't organic at all. There was lots of bribery for the hospitals and the insurance companies.
Absolutely.
All that. It was, yeah. And the only people that could stand it were people that were, had no options to feed their family and it was killing them.
Like for instance, I mean, I know quite a few people that work at the CDC, but every one of them are very much so on the left. And all they say is all Republicans are wealthy and ridiculous. Well, that's not even true. And then they knock down
or racist,
white
supremacists.
And that's not even true, because a lot of them are middle class that used to work in factories and their job was taken overseas. So they're just not crony capitalists. They hate them. That's why they're populist. And and they don't like the forever wars. But yet, like, these people from the CDC were just so angry that the president was the president that they would literally say things like, he just needs to get out of our way. He keeps asking questions and he won't let us do what we need to do. His job was to ask questions. Like, what the hell? And then it was like, no, we need this guy in because we trust him because he's part of our tribe. And it's like, oh my God. And you have the responsibility to keep all of us healthy. Holy, oh, this is why I cuss. Like, oh my God, this is where we are right now. And people are dying and you don't care how many people die, just as long as you get rid of the guy and you fight him to put out disinformation where he's putting out information and all you want to do is a gotcha. So he's given half information for you to put out your information and say, look, he's killing people, while you're telling him to leave because you don't want him to have any questions, all in order to try to make people hate him so you can put someone else in, all because you're a partisan hack. You're a political freaking hack and you don't care about people dying. And you're going and talking to all kinds of countries. And the fact that you didn't get who you wanted in office is superseding everything. It's so disgusting. And that's why it's dangerous when people worship government, because they're literally our neighbors. They're like regular people who have regular issues. And then people are like, oh, well, you're bad because you don't want the guy. No, I don't want, some guy who plays Final Fantasy every day and drinks at night telling me, something that I've researched that I don't know what I'm talking about. And he has yet to even open a page to read what it is, but he's got the authority because he sits in that seat and he pushes a button. Like, that's disgusting and I can't deal with it. And I think, there should be a lot of accountability for government officials, but they put these blocks where you cannot question them and they are above the law, and it's disgusting. And that's why people who push this bureaucratic BS just do it in order to have a position and in order not, to always have that continuous paycheck. And so they want the government bigger and bigger, and that causes taxes to go up. But do you see potholes? I do. Do you see dysfunctional bridges? I do. Does it look like they're doing their job? No. So our regular people, that's our government. And we should be able to hold our neighbor accountable when he sucks at his job, period.
Well, I think that's been one of our huge advantages as a group. You're in Georgia, you're a Republican, I'm in Oregon, I'm a lifelong Democrat. And yet
I'm
we came
not a
together to solve, all these weird mysteries that are bugging us, and we all kind of agree on that. And, we've found a common language, a a common bond to bring us together. And that's what needs to spread to the country, to get back to that, where we don't have to agree on anything, and yet we can agree on the big issues and have great discussions and have total respect
Yeah.
for each other.
I'm not a
And just it's
Republican, though.
fun that way. It's fun. You don't want to have everybody homogenous. That
Right. But I will say I'm not a Republican because they've skewed from what they say they stand for.
well,
I
I'm
tend to be
same thing. I mean, I'm
conservative in
not where I
areas,
was either. but
yeah.
we-
And so the party line has gone
Mhm.
wackadoo. It's like you're
Yeah.
playing Twister. And so I'm just like, I just want integrity. I want honesty.
Yeah,
I
right.
tend to be more conservative because it's less abrasive and you're not forcing things on
Mhm.
other people.
But
However,
we've come
Yeah.
from different places, and
Yes, yes.
we both listen. We all listen to each other, and it really helps inform what direction we'd like to see things go in. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I really do. I'm so glad.
Well, I think that most people in Atlanta or the Fulton County know that most politicians suck at their jobs, but they really don't know how to go about changing anything. That's where I think that this show and shows similar to it are so important, because it actually gives people the nuts and bolts of go to this floor of this building and knock on this window and harass the hell out of this person or these people, like Fannie Willis. I think, Amber, you have a connection to Fannie Willis, don't you?
Oh, well, yeah. I worked hard to get her and Paul Howard, who was the DA. There was an activist named Mary Hooks, and she, right as as COVID started, she started to go to Paul Howard's office, telling him he had to release prisoners. He was releasing 500 prisoners at a time, and all we asked for was like a log of who he was releasing to make sure they weren't violent criminals. He said he couldn't do that, and that somebody was keeping up with it, and he would never give us the ledger. But all of a sudden, homeless people under bridges started getting massacred and shot in the head. And so we were like, okay, we got to get this guy out of here. He won't even let us know who he, and they would fight Facebook Live Mary Hooks going in there telling him and demanding he needed to let people out of jail. And this is before the George Floyd thing. We were like, okay, this is insane. Like, this is literally insane. And so we said, no, we're not dealing with this. This is crazy. And we asked for people to please step up to let's see any more candidates, but because they're not paid as well as a lot of other people, and it's a huge and it's a hard job because of the amount of like red tape and the crazy dysfunction. She had already served as his assistant district attorney previous years, but Atlanta hated her because she actually prosecuted all the teachers that were just passing the black students who were like, when they graduated, they still couldn't read. And she said, you're destroying generations of our children and you're out. Like, how dare you do this? Because they were doing it for years, and they were finding lots of Fulton County public school kids couldn't read, and they were doing it so they could keep getting federal funding and just passing these kids, and our gang activity went up. And so she put them in jail, and I was like, right on. Like, this was so I was like, okay, this is our candidate. The other guy, Christian Wise Smith, who wanted the job, he was a full-blown communist. We're like, okay, this is not a good idea. And so we interviewed him. You can rent a room at the state capitol, and sometimes if you call the right people, they can just give you one, and you get it for a couple hours. So anytime that a bunch of us, we would schedule a room, and then we would meet with candidates, or we would go to their office and we would talk to them. And so after multiple times and talking to assistant district attorneys who used to work in Paul Howard's office and who worked there at the time, they said, oh my God, Fonnie is so much better than Paul, because he has a stack of papers of women who were raped and women and children's cases that he has not touched. And these women are still in battered women and children's centers because he says he wants to handle them, but they're never getting handled. So women are still staying in these centers. They don't feel safe. And so they're waiting for their court case, which has not come. And some have been waiting for 2 and 3 years. And this guy is so dysfunctional, he needs to get out of here. So, on face value, she was great. And she never mentioned Democrat or Republican. It wasn't until when she got in there, Charlie Bailey, who worked for the Clinton Foundation and for the Clinton administration, got in and started getting in her ear. And so that's what I think is super tacky, is when Trump had said, lock her up. And then once that all took place, he was like, okay, we're going to let the justice system handle it. We're going to let them make that decision because I'm not going to persecute or go and make political prisoners and go after someone who's not in my party. Well, she behind the scenes is using Charlie Bailey to go into the offices of people like Fani Willis and to push forward so everyone only hears about Fani. They don't hear about Charlie Bailey, who's actually behind it, who's very close to the Clinton Foundation. And so that's the problem, is that real news about what's happening and her trying to do this in order to pay him back because she believes the election was stolen. So this is her revenge. So it's so disgusting that, yeah, am I disappointed in Fani? Yeah, she's supposed to represent both sides of the aisle, actually all sides of the aisle as a district attorney. But because the first half of their election, when it came down to just her and Paul Howard, the problem was the first half she didn't get any DNC money. She only got people from Buckhead, which I got for her, and people on the west side, which I got for her. And she got South Atlanta, and she got Midtown and downtown because some other people helped. And she didn't get any DNC money. And the DNC wanted to have Paul Howard be the one because they were pushing to let people out of jail. And they were pushing, I was thinking they were doing it before the Summer of Love, before COVID hit, because all of this was like at the beginning of 2020, when right before lockdown, like right after lockdowns happened. And it was like they wanted people out of jail, like as many as possible. And then they started the defund thing. This is before the defund. This is before Floyd came out. And so this was kind of in the books of what they were going to be doing. And so they were giving Paul Howard money because he was the one working with Mary Hooks to let a lot of people out of jail. And then whenever we pushed back, and then we put in Fani, they were like, okay. So they flipped the script and ended up giving her money the second half because we actually found out how many dirty deeds that Paul Howard had done, which taken money under the table and did a lot of stuff he wasn't supposed to that had been hidden by the Judicial Qualifications Commission that was reconstituted here in Georgia. So that was the bigger issue, is that the second half, the DNC gave her money so she could win. And she could clasp that East Atlanta, which is the CDC Emory area, that were all voting for Paul Howard. And that she needed those numbers, and she needed the far left extremist numbers. So the DNC with Charlie Bailey came in and gave her money and made sure to promote her. So she ended up winning 76% of the vote. And Paul Howard did not. And he lost pretty much everybody except for the more criminal areas, which he had to resort to trying to get their vote when he was the one prosecuting him to put him in jail. So that's how hideous and crazy that whole fight was. And I was in it from the beginning, so I know all the intimate details. But the shame is that when you hear Fani Willis and you hear the sheriff and you hear the indictment, did any of you hear that Clinton's minions were behind it doing it? No, nobody heard it. Nobody knows. It's Charlie Bailey, buddy. And there's a group of them that there were promises made if the election was clinched, and that was unbeknownst to us, who got her to the runoff to fight against Paul Howard, who essentially allowed serial killers to get out that were murdering homeless. So if anyone thinks that the Buckhead conservatives or Republicans don't give a damn about the homeless, they do. They were mortified. They were so upset that he was letting people out that were violent criminals. They didn't mind if it was low level drug offenses or people who weren't violent. That's not what the issue was. They were asking for a list of the people, and he wouldn't give it because they were letting just 500 people that Mary Hooks and her organization asks for. They're Facebook living it. It was absolutely grotesque. And so they were, each side of the aisle was asking, give us, the thing. But there was this already pre-planned, what, that happened with all the violence and intimidation and the Soros crap that we just dealt with. So that's the story behind it. I have so much more, but I don't want to waste this whole day talking about it. But I wanted to share so you would know the shenanigans that go on. It's just literally having me live it all the time.
Well, that's a great story, Amber. And I think similar things have happened in many, many places. And John had an organization up on the screen a little minute ago, ICLEI. And I think this is, basically a global government organization that has deep pockets and lots of funding. And they're there to, work on both sides. So it all ends up where they want it to be. They're people in position that are doing exactly what you're talking about all over the country in bureaucratic
both sides of the
position.
aisle, everywhere. It's gross.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is, Amber just showed us the value of citizen journalism, because on a surface level, we kind of know it, but when you really dig into the Atlanta area politics, Fulton County politics, I've been living in Atlanta for over a year, and I've been following Georgia politics roughly for a year or two before that, and I'd never heard the name of Paul Howard or of Charlie Bailey. Why is that? Because the machine that controls the media is so airtight. Citizen journalism is becoming more and more critical if we're going to get out of this.
And it's being more and more, the plug is being pulled again. For a while, we sort of were getting back a little bit of that cancel culture. And now I'm noticing a lot more things are, you click on a link and it's not there anymore within 5 minutes of it being posted. So I don't know if it's AI or what, but there's another level going on, it seems like, of censorship. So that's what makes it hard for citizen journalists to get the reach. But for word of mouth and, sharing links, and it's still happening. It's still happening. The messages are being broadcast that we're talking about, whether it's from us or people are changing them a little bit, but there are a lot of people working on this problem now.
I will say, I don't know. So I break out of my algorithm, Carol, and the research that I find when I break out is so much more immense. I can find so much more. So let's say you open up a social media account under two different emails that you've never used before, because you use that new email and then a backup email, right? And then you're just, somebody, like you used your middle name and your a portion of your maiden name, right? And so when you're doing that, you're able to kind of bounce around. There's not really an algorithm on you, as far as like when you're researching. And then once you've been on that platform, you can actually be on that platform and click. So say I'm on Facebook under like not who I am, right? And I click on somebody who posted a Twitter link. Now I can try to open it and it says, would you like to sign up for Twitter? Then I go with that same link, and then I use those same two emails. And then I'm able to go through all the social media. The kind of stuff you see, you're in a totally different universe. And then when you go to look through your iOS or your Google, they end up giving you more information than you would get just by using it like you normally do. So it's such a weird algorithm that you're able to bounce around in a way where you can actually find, because they haven't narrowed down who you are. They haven't put you in a bubble yet, because you're just kind of a floater who's nondescript. And so what you don't want to do is, once you're that, you can't like or share posts. You just have to be like a voyeur. You're just looking around. And then, then you can like copy and paste, but not, and put it in your notes, but not actually like or share, because that's what shoves you in a bubble and then puts you to where you will only see specific things. So it's really crazy and such a difficult task to get out of your algorithm, but they think most people won't know that or know how to do it. And so they take full advantage of it. And I feel so bad, because I know some people get angry and they're like, I can't believe this person believes this, or they don't understand. And I'm like, they have no idea. They're in a bubble. They're like in a separate room, in a separate country, on a different planet, in a different universe. They have no idea. So they think you're crazy and you think they're crazy. And that's what we have to actually understand, not to be mad and hate each other, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And I think that infuriates people that I know that are very, very partisan, because they're like, you're being too nice, or you're being too gentle. No, I'm being like actually normal, to know that I can't get mad at someone who doesn't know what they don't know, or they only know what they've been fed. Like, I can't expect a watermelon to be an orange. Like, this is not how, I can't have a higher expectancy than what I should deserve myself. So I'm looking for perfection in others and making demands that I myself can't even fulfill. Like, that's crazy. So, that, like, we have to be a little more gentle or patient with each other, and then look to ways to communicate with others who don't see what we're seeing, by sharing links of trusted sources that they trust. Not so much that we trust, but that they trust, that are saying exactly what we're trying to tell them. And that like takes extra search, and it's exhausting. But if you think the person is worth it and you really care about them, you kind of go that extra length. It's just, this is why we're tired, right? This is why that's like an unending task, and it's frustrating, yes, but I just don't want to give up on my neighbors and loved ones and people who just don't know what they don't know.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm observing that it's easier to do that now. I think there are more people that are waking up, and so there are more sources that come from the Trusted News Initiative or whatever that are starting to see more than they were, or they're having to acknowledge it, I think, more than they're seeing more, but they're forced into acknowledging it because it becomes part of the conversation, and that's one way around the algorithms. But we don't want to live in an algorithm universe, clearly. It's just a difficult box.
Way too many people don't even know that they're part of one or more algorithms, and that's part of what we've got to do is show people that a lot of the computer tools that are being developed at our Ivy League schools are being developed to put that each person, each citizen or resident in an algorithm.
Yeah, and it's too complicated, we're just not simple creatures, really. I mean, there may be obvious things about each of us, but there's also this infinite complexity that has to do with our being able to have discernment and be able to change our minds if that's where things are going. It's not the obvious establishment. What do you got here, John?
It's a part of what's called Fat Rank. It describes a little bit. Oh, do you remember Donald Rumsfeld back in 2005 started explaining about the known unknowns and the unknown knowns?
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was a great clip. But here we have to help each other to understand the things that we know for sure are mostly wrong. The things that we've never heard of. For example, I talked to a high school classmate yesterday who's never heard of Igor Kolomoisky and the fact that he owns half of downtown Cleveland, including the building he worked in. Then if you don't know what you don't know, and you need someone there to help you even open the door, to crack the egg towards the fact that maybe you don't know everything. Maybe most of what you know is wrong.
Well, that's an excellent point. I think the more people that can accept that it's a really complicated world and we all have to do our part to figure it out, and figure it out for ourselves and to help people figure it out for themselves, that it will get a lot further than just putting people in all these boxes and then punishing them or promoting them. That seems to be what's happening now, but it's not getting us to a place that's additive or multiplicative. It's not building on strengths. It's just kind of compartmentalizing. Lots of compartmentalization that doesn't communicate. It's putting hard edges on things that will work better without those hard edges.
Well, I call it the balkanization of the, especially of the younger, people under 40. We are being balkanized, and that is part of Zbigniew Brzezinski's grand strategy. Back in the 70s, was to literally in the Balkans to create these lots of little groups that were constantly bickering at each other. That's why he brought in so many Muslims, from the Middle East. The balkanization of the American populace is mathematically a huge task, and it involves Facebook, it involves Twitter. That's why the very best mathematicians go to work for the Ministry of Truth up in Boston.
Well, you can definitely see it happening, sadly. There is that balkanization. And if you look at the Balkans, look at what happened to Ukraine, look at what happened to Yugoslavia. Horrible, horrible devastation in both those places where that just got taken to its extreme, where, you know, where the oligarchs can come in and buy it and start over. You know, we don't want that to happen here. So we have to wake up before it happens, because that is the plan. And you're in Cleveland, where Kolomoisky owns half of the downtown, so you can see that. And where is it? Where all the Somali drug lords are? That's not Cleveland, is it? That's
Is it Minneapolis?
yeah. So there's places where it's happening. We have a lot of Ukrainian immigration here, and have for many, many, many years. So I'm sure there's more to that going on than I'm aware of in Portland. Well, there's only two of us today. We've been going an hour. Do you want to keep going, or shall we?
Well, I just want to underline some of the, well, first I want to bring up one of the links that you sent me yesterday, and that is the number of students that are constantly sick. And I know several kids back in Italy who are, you know, they're missing 1 or 2 days every week, it seems. Now, I don't agree with everything that Mike Adams produces, but I do agree with this one.
Well, I think he's citing a different study, so it did.
Yeah, this is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this should not be happening.
This should not be happening. Definitely true. And well, I think the jabs are one thing, that it was a travesty to get them on people that were totally healthy and didn't need them at all. But the masking and the classes that happen online didn't help anything for people's mental health, certainly not their ability to learn. We learn from each other. You know, you can learn from books and be isolated. There's, like Abraham Lincoln did, but if you have good people to talk to and ask questions, you can learn so much quicker. And we have to allow expressions on people's faces, emphasis. You know, that's how things can get into your brain. It's not just rote. So, not to mention the destruction, you know, the side effects that are affecting all the kids too. But I think all the pressures from the mental health point of view, you know, just feeling isolated, feeling manipulated by your friends, by whatever. There's just so much going on that can cause people to disengage. It's a sad thing.
Right, and disengagement is a key word there, because there's what we need right now, because we have a common enemy, whether it's here in Cleveland or Atlanta or Portland or in Boston. The common enemy is this group that's trying to balkanize us. And in order to be effective, we need to unite these little groups. That's why it's important to take advantage of every opportunity. I'm going to a meeting later today talking about with some leaders of Cuyahoga County, Lake County, Portage County. They're against something called NOACA, the Northeastern Ohio Alliance for Climate Action, or something like that. And it's by getting little groups of citizens, you know, elderly or Republicans over 40 with Democrats under 30, you know, getting little groups together to talk about the common enemy is what we really need to do.
That's right. And I think climate change is likely going to be the next big emergent mesmerization of everybody moving towards something that sounds good on one level, but it's not where anybody would want to really go. And the science is being diverted from actual real studies. There's just so many psyops going on about that. that tug on our heartstrings. You know, they're using the exact same methodology to do another lockdown, only this is a climate lockdown instead of a pandemic lockdown. And there wasn't a real pandemic. 1% of people died, or a very small number, when they thought it would be 40%. So this is the same deal. It's a huge exaggeration. There are a lot of things that don't hold up. Real science actually would totally disagree with a lot of that. And we've got the juice on that too. Many scientists are starting to speak up now. So we have to keep alert. Don't let that happen. Don't let all the other psyops happen. It's a big job for those who accept it.
We have to engage more and more with civic leaders, with top scientists in our respective counties, and we have to get others who are kind of sort of in the milieu to engage more as well. But everyone needs a little bit better time management. They need to delegate what he or she is able to delegate, and focus on those few tasks that help drive people towards the center, towards some kind of unity.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're working for. We've done it here, so it's possible.
It is possible.
This is our little incubator, and it's working great. So.
I love talking about incubators because of the chicks,
Mm-hmm.
On Carmen Doc's farm. Those chicks were awesome.
Yeah, and she had a lot of bantams too that were not much bigger than the chicks, but they had all their beautiful feathers, little teeny mini birds. They were cute.
Okay, we're going to have a rebroadcast of last week's Protecting the Nest, which failed because of bandwidth issues. We're going to have a rebroadcast on Saturday evening at 6 o'clock. And then we're going to do a best of various clips of 4 or 5 minutes each from previous episodes on Sunday evening. Look for that email announcing the times, and please join us on Monday tomorrow we have at noon Eastern, we have the George Webb Video Watch Party. That's a Zoom call. And Monday night, David Underdown on a Zoom call. All right, everybody. That's it for today. Stay safe and effective. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Amber.